I want you to suffer every day for the rest of your life.
Will sleep well at night, knowing that you are where you belong, in prison, away from society.
They say on the day Jenean Chapman's body was found, suspect James Michael Patrick was at a hospital for treatment and admitted to a healthcare professional he had dried blood on his hand because he had a fight with his wife.
We are seeking justice for her, and we are willing to do anything in our power to make sure that happens.
A welfare check turns into a homicide scene. A woman is found on her bed, her face beaten so badly her own sisters can barely recognize her. The blood has already dried into the sheets. Her name is Jenean Chapman.
Police documents reveal new evidence against the man accused of murdering his estranged wife in downtown Dallas last month. They say on the day Jenean Chapman's body was found, suspect James Michael Patrick was at a hospital for treatment and admitted to a healthcare professional he had dried blood on his hand because he had a fight with his wife. Fox 4's David Centendry has more evidence from the murder investigation. David?
Well, Jenean Chapman's family says they could barely recognize her body prior to her funeral. Now, with the help of some police documents, we're learning a bit more about what led to her husband's arrest.
Everything.
46-year-old Jenean Chapman meant the world to her sister, Crystal Marshall.
My sister was a beacon of light for me.
Now we're learning more about Chapman's estranged husband, 48-year-old James Michael Patrick, who's charged in her murder.
Just seemed like the relationship just wasn't stable.
According to a newly obtained arrest affidavit, on September 20th, Chapman took time off work for domestic issues. Then her work did not hear from her for 5 days, so her HR manager called police for a welfare check. It was at her apartment complex off Elm Street in downtown, where Dallas police discovered Chapman's body on her bed. There were large amounts of blood. A nightstand and a lamp had been knocked over. There were obvious injuries to her neck, face, and body. Chapman's family says her body was unrecognizable.
It's hard to wrap our brains around the fact that she's dead because it's like it didn't look like her.
According to the affidavit, police interviewed one of Chapman's sisters who claimed Patrick choked Chapman unconscious in a recent fight.
Don't take anything lightly at all.
It's unclear how many days Chapman's body was left in the apartment. According to the affidavit, the day police found her body, Patrick was admitted to a hospital in Austin for treatment to an adverse reaction to an unknown substance he took. During his examination, a doctor observed a bloody black fingernail on Patrick. When asked how the injury occurred, Patrick said, "I got in a fight with my wife."
My sister was a classic domestic abused woman.
After college, Chapman spent time working as a personal assistant to Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York. Ferguson posted on Instagram that she's shocked and saddened of Chapman's murder. She says she's making a donation to support Chapman's family.
Patrick is being held here at the Dallas County Jail on a $1 million bond. Peyton, I'll send it back to you.
David, thank you.
46 years old, a senior marketing executive, a woman who once worked inside the world of British royalty, a woman her family describes over and over as someone who gave everything she had to other people. Less than 200 miles away, in a hospital bed in Austin, the man responsible is being treated for a reaction to an unknown substance. A doctor notices something odd, a fingernail, bloodied and blackened. When asked what happened, he says he got into a fight with his wife. He had married her 3 months earlier. This is the story of Jenean Chapman, and it is a story about how fast I do can turn into a death sentence. Before we get into it, if crimes like this are the reason you're here, this is exactly what Crime Trail Chronicles covers every week. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Before she was anyone's wife, Jenean Chapman was already somebody. After college, she landed a job most people only dream about: personal assistant to Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York. Ferguson would later say Jenean was loyal, hardworking, and full of life. not a passing compliment. A description from someone who watched her work up close, every day, for years. By the time she reached her 40s, Jenean had built a career in digital marketing, climbing into a senior executive role. She had her own apartment in the heart of downtown Dallas. She had a mother, Ann Marshall, who adored her. She had 3 sisters, Crystal, Shireen, and Nicole, who would later stand in a courtroom and tell the world exactly who she was. By every measure that mattered, Jenean Chapman was thriving. Then there was James Michael Patrick. The two of them were on again, off again for roughly 6 years. Not a whirlwind, not new. 6 years of history, 6 years for her family to watch the pattern repeat itself. And the pattern was not good. Family members would later use one word to describe the relationship: toxic.
When officers arrived to these apartments in the 1400 block of Elm Street in downtown Dallas, they were acting on a wellness check after 46-year-old Jenean Chapman didn't show up for work. Officers found her dead inside her unit. Dallas police say the suspect, 48-year-old James Patrick, was arrested in Austin. Investigators haven't released many details, but the family says the man in question is Jenean's husband of about 2 months, but they've known each other for years. The family has many questions, but classify the relationship as toxic, and they say their next focus is on the legal system.
We are seeking justice for her, and we are willing to do anything in our power to make sure that happens. And we're going to seek the fullest extent of the law to make sure this guy is behind bars and stays behind bars.
Jenean's sisters say that she recently moved to Dallas from California, but grew up in New Jersey and Jamaica. Her sisters say she was a senior vice president of a marketing firm and that their sister will be remembered for her accomplishments, heart, and determination.
And still, in July of 2023, Jenean married him. Her family did not go to the wedding, not her mother, not her sisters. The people who loved her most stayed away from her wedding day, not out of pettiness, not out of a scheduling conflict. They stayed away because they were afraid of what this marriage would become. They were right to be afraid. Within weeks, the marriage was already coming apart. Patrick had, at one point, been removed from her apartment, kicked out of the home they were supposed to be sharing as husband and wife. Whatever they had built in 6 years of on and off history was collapsing in a matter of months. By mid-September, Jenean had taken time off from work. The reason she gave HR domestic issues. She wasn't hiding what was happening. She was naming it. An argument breaks out, and this time it doesn't stop at yelling. Patrick strangles her. He beats her. The injuries later documented to her neck, her face, her body, severe enough that even people who knew her well would struggle to recognize what was left. A nightstand is knocked over. A lamp goes down with it. The room tells its own story before anyone from the outside ever sees it. And then he leaves. No call to police, no call for an ambulance, no attempt at any point to get her help. Her company's HR manager made the call, request a welfare check. Police arrive at the apartment in the 1400 block of Elm Street, downtown Dallas. They find her on the bed, the blood, the overturned furniture, the injuries to her neck and face and body. It's enough that investigators initially log the case as an unexplained death, a term used before the full picture comes into focus. It doesn't stay unexplained for long. The Dallas County Medical Examiner's Office rules it a homicide. Sources close to the investigation would later confirm what the injuries already suggested. Jenean Chapman had been strangled. Meanwhile, nearly 200 miles south, James Michael Patrick is sitting in a hospital bed in Austin, admitted for a reaction to an unknown substance. The kind of detail that reads almost like an afterthought next to what investigators would soon connect it to. University of Texas police, working off of what they now know, arrest him right there in the hospital. He is charged with murder. From there, investigators build the rest of the case methodically. Surveillance footage places Patrick at Jenean's apartment in the days leading up to her death. Cell phone data puts him at the scene around the time she was killed. And running underneath all of it is the history her own family had already reported, a documented pattern of violence, including the choking incident one sister had told police about before Jenean was ever in danger of losing her life over it. There was one more detail that made the case even harder to hear. Jenean had reportedly been planning to leave him. Prosecutors would eventually argue that this, the leaving, the ending of it, is exactly what triggered the violence that killed her. Not a stranger's crime, not a random act, a calculated response to a woman trying to walk away from a marriage that had barely lasted 3 months. The case reached trial in Dallas County in January 2025, more than a year after Jenean Chapman was found dead in her own bed. Patrick's defense had one real card left to play: sudden passion. If the jury believed the killing happened in a moment of overwhelming emotional response rather than as a deliberate act, Patrick could have walked away with as little as 2 years, maybe 20 at the most. On the stand, Patrick told the jury a different story altogether. He claimed self-defense. The jury didn't buy either version. They found him guilty of murder. Then came the sentence, 72 years in prison. Patrick showed almost no reaction as it was read aloud. No tears, no outburst, just silence, in a courtroom that had waited over a year to hear it. The most powerful part of this case didn't happen during testimony about blood spatter or cell phone data. It happened after the verdict, when Jenean's family finally got to stand in front of the man who killed her and say exactly what they needed to say. Her mother, Ann Marshall, went first. She described her daughter simply as someone who gave, even when she had nothing left to give. A woman who put herself aside for other people again and again without being asked to. Then her sister Shireen stepped up. She told Patrick she hoped he would suffer for the rest of his life.
I want you to suffer every day for the rest of your life.
And I want him to hear those words forever. And I will sleep well at night, knowing that you are where you belong, in prison, away from society.
One day, a CO will open your cell, and you will be dead on your metal stone bed. And that will be the end of your story.
The Dallas man was sentenced to 72 years in prison for brutally murdering his wife. James Michael Patrick gave little reaction when he learned his fate for killing Jenean Chapman. Chapman was an accomplished woman who once worked for the Duchess of York. Today, her loved ones minced no words, sharing what they think of Patrick. Fox 4's David Santandri was in court today, and David's live in Dallas outside the courthouse tonight. David?
Yeah, Steve, it's a 72-year sentence for that brutal murder. And today the victim's family was telling this now convicted killer face-to-face exactly how they feel about him.
I will never forgive you.
For nearly a year and a half, Jenean Chapman has been working to find words to say to James Michael Patrick, the man who showed no emotion, Friday, as he was sentenced to 72 years in prison for murdering his wife, Jenean Chapman, Shireen's sister.
May you endure a life of perpetual fear and decay, confined to an existence devoid of solace or redemption. I want you to suffer every day for the rest of your life.
And I want him to hear those words forever.
In 2023, Jenean Chapman took time away from work for domestic issues. But when her office did not hear from her for 5 days, police were called for a welfare check. Chapman was found dead in her downtown Dallas apartment. Her family says her body was unrecognizable. Patrick was arrested at a hospital in Austin after he was admitted for treatment to an adverse reaction to an unknown substance he took. While in the hospital, he told doctors he got a bloody and black fingernail while fighting with his wife.
You showed no ounce of remorse or emotion towards my sister during the entire trial.
Jenean Chapman previously worked as a personal assistant to Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, for 5 years after college. The Duchess shared her condolences on social media after the murder and has followed up with Chapman's mother in the aftermath.
She called me 3 times. We talked. and she gave me her sympathies, and she told me if there's anything she can do, I must let her know.
Family members spent an hour delivering victim impact statements to Patrick.
You're a monster, and I will sleep well at night, knowing that you are where you belong, in prison, away from society.
One day, a CO will open your cell, and you will be dead on your metal stone bed. And that will be the end of your story.
Now that they've expressed their pain to the killer, they want to share a message with the world.
To people out there, if they see any sign or indication that a loved one is being impacted by a toxic or abusive relationship, do not take the signs lightly.
Now, it's quite common after a jury verdict for jurors to leave and go home. Their job is done, but that didn't happen today. After the verdict, there was the sentencing phase, and that took several hours, and a lot of these jurors actually stuck around throughout that process, some of them in tears in the courtroom during those victim impact statements. They went up to the family members of the victim, they gave hugs, and afterwards, speaking with the victim's family in the hallway, they were telling me they felt these jurors really empathized with them and felt the pain of that loss they're experiencing.
She built a career most people would be proud of. She was loved deeply by a mother and 3 sisters who never once stopped fighting for her, before her death and long after it. And still, the most dangerous place in her life turned out to be her own home. James Michael Patrick will spend the next 7 decades in prison. For Jenean's family, that sentence is something, a measure of accountability, a moment where the truth was finally said out loud in a room he couldn't walk out of. But it doesn't undo what happened on Elm Street. It doesn't bring her back. What her family wants now is simple. They want her remembered as more than how she died. Jenean Chapman, 46 years old, loyal, hardworking, gone far too soon. If this case moved you, this is what Crime Trail Chronicles is all about. The relationships that turn deadly and the families left to pick up the pieces. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.